First part of session 64. Here we're going to talk about the highest levels of consciousness, whatever that is. Let's begin. This first part is very mixed in terms of the questions that we have from Don, but there's one particular question that made me pause and say, aha, this is going to be the center of this video. And this is the experience of Ra, the experience of sixth density. And it's a long one, it's a good one, so I think that would be the emphasis of this first part. It's a relatively average session, about 20 questions, so I'm going to try to cover 10 today and then 10 next time, so I can split it into two nice parts. Before I begin, however, there is one synchronicity that I want to tell you about, and that is of my friend Colby from Dream State Logic, who just released his new album. And that's the music you're listening to right now, and it's the name of this video as well, and it's very fitting. It's very fitting as usual. His music is very fitting to my feeling of the Law of One, my sensation of exploration of space and time, and it's fitting, the names again, for the topics that I cover here. I just think it's amazing. Of course, Colby being a student of the Law of One is influenced by this, and I'm pretty sure his album should be out already. I have, of course, the privilege of having it beforehand, but I think by this point it should be out. Links in the description to go download his stuff. He has it for free. It's down there. You can donate if you want to, but you can listen to his fantastic, phenomenal music for free. And yeah, so this is distant points of light. So how does that relate to our topic? Well, you will see when we get into the explanation of Ra's experience. That is the distant point of light, what we perceive in the highest level of consciousness, if we can call it that. I'm going to subvert your expectations there as to what is the highest level of consciousness. So with that, I can get into the session, and let's see. The first couple of questions here I omitted because it had to do with how's Carla. She's fine, except for a little bit of an issue. I'll just tell you exactly what they said. They said it was a transitory distortion. She is, as previously stated, with a transitory distortion, lessening the free flow of vital energy. Then Don wanted to ask about that, and Ra said that that was marginal information, meaning that it wasn't really important. So nothing worth talking about. And Don picked up on that, and he simply asked what I have in question 3, where he says, I would like to ask first about a mistake I believe that I might have made in the last session on the number of wanderers on Earth today. Did I make an error? Ra says, you and Ra made an error. The appropriate number of your ciphers is one less than previously stated. So again, this is a good reminder of our wanderers population. And this is with updated information from 2018's channeling of Kuo, where they said that, even now, it is there are fewer wanderers than what they projected wrongly in session 63. So the whole point of this question is that in session 63, I mentioned that already, Don says, is it true that we have 600 million wanderers? I think it was, or 6. I don't know why I keep getting the number 65 million. Okay, but he said 600 million. Let me just make sure. But that was, of course, an extra digit or cipher as Ra said. And yeah, there is an excess to that amount, 600. So out of the 60 million that they mentioned, I would swear that they said 65 million at some point. I'll have to look it up and ease my I don't know, my itch of 65 for some reason. But whatever. It's about 60 million wonders in 1981. Now we're up to approximately 350 million of wonders. So there has been a gradual increase. And then the explosion of this dual activated body entities who are graduates from third density, from other planets for fourth density positive, and they came here to have their early experience fourth density within a third density body. I know that sounds very complicated, but if you follow the whole theme of graduations into densities, you understand. So that's over 500 million. So yeah, even that number doesn't get close to the error, the mistake that they made back then. And so Ra admits, yes, you and Ra made an error. I love how they speak of themselves as the third person. There is no me. So the appropriate number of your ciphers is one less than previously stated. So instead of 600, take a digit out, and it's 60 million. So that was the right number of wanderers. Keep that in mind. We are at 300 and let's say 300. And then 500 million. So we have over 10%, like I've been saying. I think this is just fascinating for anybody who enjoys the inspiration of the process of ascension. This is just phenomenal. It really is. It just tells us how much we have been receiving the fourth density entities, in essence. Even though they don't know it, they don't remember it because they are under the veil of illusion, eventually they will realize this, whether that be by studying the law of one in whatever iteration it is, in whatever iteration we provide to them as their ancestors, or by simply piercing the veil somehow. I don't know. But they will realize it eventually, and that's going to be the party of fourth density here on Earth. So I talked about that a lot in session 63. If you're interested and haven't watched that session, I think I made 3 videos on it, so over 3 hours worth of that information. But here we're going to transition to Don's question 4, where he says, "Thank you. Could you explain the basic principles behind the ritual which we perform to initiate the contact and what I would call the basic white magical rituals, principles of protection and other principles? Could you please do this?" Ra says, "Due to your avenue of question, we perceive the appropriateness of inclusion of the cause of this instrument's transitory vital energy distortion. The cause is a bias towards the yearning for expression of devotion of the one creator in group worship." So, okay, so let's get the land prepared for this. So Don is asking, what are the principles behind the rituals of white magic that we make for initiating this contact? It's a good question, just to see how does this work, Ra? How does the ritual that we perform to initiate this contact with you refers to the white magical rituals that we are so used to in Western occultist magic. The principles of protection and other principles. This is to initiate contact with entities, right? And Ra says that, in essence, I'll just try to interpret and translate some of what they said here. I think they want to use Carla, right? Because they say, due to your avenue of question, we perceive the appropriateness of inclusion of the cause of this instrument's transitory vital energy distortion. Meaning that because of the type of question that you're asking, we're going to include what Carla, in essence, has in her to contribute or ask, need, necessitate from the magical ritual. Okay, so what does Carla ask for? The cause of is a bias towards the yearning for expression of devotion of the one creator in group worship. So this is speaking to Carla's penchant, bias, predilection of how to connect with source, to use a new age language, how to connect with source. And so her way of connecting with source or with the one creator was in group worship. This is church, for those of you who know this kind of spiel of our ancient religion of Christianity. So Ra continues and says, this entity was yearning for this protection both consciously in that it responds to the accoutrements of this expression, the ritual, the colors, and their meanings as given by the distortion system of what you call the church, the song of praise and the combined prayers of thanksgiving, and, most of all, that which may be seen to be most centrally magical, the intake of that food which is not of this dimension, but has been transmuted into metaphysical nourishment in what this distortion of expression calls the Holy Communion. So, what does it all mean, and how can we use this for our benefit, for our understanding? Well, let's take it this way. Remember, they're talking about the specific question of Dun about how they initiated contact with Ra due to these rituals. How does this polish or tunes in better with the communication with Ra? Let me give you the underlying mechanism, and then we can explore this question. Okay, that it'll be like examining the mechanics of it and then seeing how it works in this particular group session, which is Carla, Dun, and Jim. So the mechanism, as far as I can understand it, is that there must be a pure devotion to worshiping the one creator. This is one way of putting it, and I'm sure the words are going to elicit all sorts of images in all of your minds. So those images are not particular, I correct myself, they are particular to you, but they are not particular to the process of initiation, say, of worshiping with the one creator. And so we have different practices. These practices are, say, we subscribe to them by whatever process we have. You know, if we have a strong foundation of worshiping the creator, which I don't like the word worship, and I don't really like the word creator that much, to be honest. I would rather say the love for self, and even that sounds, but the love for the oneself, okay, which is you and me, the presence of awareness, the consciousness, the infinite consciousness that we're all part of. All words inevitably fall into one category or another of provoking a sort of image of, oh, you think that is, the one thing, but how can you be so sure? And this is the paradigm that we're facing right now, at least my generation, who didn't grow up with church and a religion, or as I always say, we didn't have the means for which to really relate to the spiritual connection that we all have. And so I, for one, don't have rituals. I don't have any worshiping specific. If that's good or bad, I don't know. I guess I'm not really good for contacting Ra. But yeah, there needs to be a mechanism in which you really you open that gateway to intelligent infinity, which is really the disassociation of yourself as a separate being and connecting with pure consciousness. That's it, no matter how you do it. So that is the mechanism. Okay, you have to have that portal into the appreciation, the love, the feeling of oneness. I think that's it. You know, the feeling of oneness, that feeling of peace and harmony with your own reality. And so Carla's way was, as Ra says, this entity was yearning for this protection, both consciously in that it responds to the accoutrements of this expression. These accoutrements are the chalice or the cup that they had there, the Bible, and the incense. These are things that provoked in her a sense of protection, because she feels like, okay, the Bible gives me protection because I associate it with Christ. The incense is part of my rituals and stuff, and the chalice is also part of the rituals in church. So she had a huge connection with church. I know church gets a lot of, rightfully, gets a lot of flack for everything that they have done, but it still is a house of worship for those who are pure in heart. So she responded really well to that. So the ritual, the colors, and their meanings as given by the distortion system of what you call the church. See, Ra is calling the distortion system of church. That is, it's, to me, the way I interpret Ra's vocabulary is speaking about the, okay, so there is the distortion system of church. Then there is the distortion system of tribal rituals, you know, which again can be pure, and you know, the dancing, the chanting, and worshiping the moon or whatever it is, because they feel a oneness with it. Whatever it is that you associate oneness with. This is why in my eclectic way of understanding reality, my preference is consciousness. Consciousness cannot be denied by anybody. It is a totally scientific approach to revealing the oneness between all of us, and is the purest way of admitting and observing reality. Our forefathers in physics, of course, knew all of this, and they talked about this. They talk about consciousness. Planck said that you cannot get behind consciousness, meaning that that's the wall, that's the end. You know, that this is where everything comes out from, consciousness. So I like to use consciousness. If I can worship anything, it's consciousness. And I'm worshiping the whole universe by that, because everything is conscious. And Ra says the one creator. I think that's beautiful, because consciousness is actually the one creator. Nothing comes out of, nothing stands out in reality that doesn't come from consciousness. And so that's my method. Everybody can, you know, have a little deity, or, you know, certain mandalas and whatever it is, crystals and whatnot, whatever it is that makes them feel in touch with that oneness, with that feeling of oneness. I think that's the key. That's the portal to intelligent infinity. And I think this is what Ra is referring to here. I'm pretty sure this is, I'm not pretty sure, I know inside me. I'm not saying it's, you know, it's the way. So, okay, so where was I? So the distortion system that we call the church, the song of praise, and the combined prayers of thanksgiving, most of all, that which may be seen to be the most centrally magical. See, this is the communion, this is the integration, this is the yoga. See, yoga means union. From from the union of the divine and the mortal, the permanent and the impermanent. That union means that there is no separation. You see what I mean? It's a perceptual thing. And so that is part of the ritual, which I particularly don't like. The intake of the food, which is not of this dimension. This is the Holy Communion, that little, in Spanish we call it hostia, which is a curse word in Spain, I think, hostia. But I don't know how they call it in English. You can see that I never went to church in the United States. So yes, but it's that little piece of bread, of wheat that you eat, drenched in some wine. I always found it a little bit morbid, to represent blood and flesh. You're going to eat my blood and flesh, but that was the interpretation that we got from Jesus. Jesus is face palming somewhere, like, no, but fine, if that gives you yoga, great. But yeah, that's what they're talking about. But has been transmuted into metaphysical nourishment in what this distortion of expression calls the Holy Communion. You see, another key point here is this transmutation into metaphysical nourishment, as opposed to being just calories for your body. When you are in that state of perfection, union with the divine, then that represents metaphysical nourishment. You don't need any of this. It's just the value that you put in this distortion system that you create. So fasting does the same thing. Fasting has nothing to do with spiritual. Some people and this is where I would say that it's a very important psychological reaction that we have as humans. You see, follow me on this one. Sometimes when we're looking for something, the ego is the only one looking for something, right? And so the ego says, well, I need to do something so I can become divine, so I can become spiritual. I need to become spiritual, right? So the ego goes and says, oh, yoga, there's a lot of stretches and things, that would get me into the divine. I will do that. Or church, I'll go to church and sing all the hymns and prayers and all this stuff, and I'll become divine and spiritual. And so the ego practices in the hopes that somehow it'll really dawn and it'll shine the light of spirits on it. But it never happens, right? A lot of people get frustrated by their worshiping and all of this stuff, and God doesn't listen to me, God is terrible, and so on. It's the ego always projecting guilty and victim. So all of this is how we go into the mechanical worshiping, the mechanical approach to divinity. And it's not like this. You have to have that pure essence. That pure essence is just really feeling, what that union is. And that is the disconnection of that ego. There is no self. There is no separate self. And as you divest yourself from the belief of the ego, then that shines. And whatever system you used, could have been, like I said, A Course in Miracles, could have been the Bible, could have been the Law of One, could have been Alice in Wonderland. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that is the thing that gives you inspiration. And that produces that metaphysical nourishment that Ra is talking about. That's yoga, it's union. So, there's more to say about this right here. Ra says, the subconscious reason, it being the stronger for this yearning, was the awareness that such expression is, when appreciated by an entity, as the transmutation in the presence of the one creator, a great protection of the entity as it moves in the path of service to others. So, this is just another way of saying that this subconscious reason was the yearning and the awareness of such expression appreciated by an entity as transmutation in the presence of the one creator. So this is just her mechanism. As far as I can understand it, the way that Carla perceived this protection and this connection with oneness through this means. A great protection of the entity as it moves in the path of service to others. So yeah, it's Ra calls it the clothing yourself in the magical personality, I think it is. And so this is how Carla did it. You know, you get into your protected. You see, there is also the, now that I'm thinking about this and protection and magical personality and all of this, when you go to a ceremony and you see, you know, that they seal your aura with a specific like sage and stuff like that. I don't want to speculate, but I do believe that there's a stronger protection by the love of the shaman, the true shaman, of course, that is sealing your aura, and it's putting its energy into you. It's like a healer, right? And they do this ritual, and this is meant to protect you. And then, you know, it does put this psychology of the mind, when it's getting into something with respect and with surrender and all of this, then this is why ceremonies, I would say, and I'm a little bit hesitant to say this, but true ceremony, let's just put it this way, because the New Age community has brought up a lot of things that I don't consider 100% pure ceremony. But yeah, I digress. The point is that all of these rituals persist. Even in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a lot of rituals. And these rituals are protection, and they do channeling and everything, of course. Not all Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism. So there's a lot of worshiping. And it's all about, you know, the presence of the One. And I think that is the key thing. How do you connect with the presence of the One? Okay, so lastly, in this question, Ra says the principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature is to so configure the stimuli which reach down into the trunk of mind that this arrangement causes the generation of disciplined and purified emotion or love, which then may be touch, I correct myself, may be both protection and the key to the gateway to intelligent infinity. Here it is. Here's the punchline. Boom. So Ra finally says, this is everything that I've said. This is perfect. Thank you, Ra. It's like the last puzzle piece. So check it out. The principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature, this is, of course, I'll just describe it in bullet points. I would like to connect with my oneness, with the oneness that we all are. And so I will do a ritual, and this ritual will put me in the mindset of this, right? That's what's happening. So the principle behind any ritual of the white magical nature is to so configure the stimuli, okay? We're configuring the setting, okay? Just like when you go to a ceremony, the setting is important. Don't do it in the city, you know, in the streets. Do it in a place where you feel comfortable. It could be the streets, but I don't think anybody would find that a proper setting for connecting. I mean, well, you can even say that, you know, there's real hardcore meditators who go into the heart of the city and just sit there. That's another topic. Let me not get into that. That's a pure mastery of the mind. So, yeah, this stimuli is the setting, the surroundings. How do you prefer things? You can see, I love this stuff. I love Japanese and Zen arts, and I love the chakras. So they are part of my, let's say, my environment here. I just love it. And I'm heavily into Buddhism, so I love everything, not everything, but many things that are Buddhist by nature or by design. So that stimuli reaches down into the trunk of the mind. The trunk of the mind is, remember, is we have the intuition, we have the intellect and the intuition. That intuition is the trunk of the mind. That intuition goes into the subconscious, the personal subconscious, then the planetary subconscious, and the group subconscious or consciousness or levels of mind, whatever you want to call it. It's just deeper and deeper levels until the roots go all the way down to the one creator. So they reach down into the trunk of mind. So this arrangement causes the generation of disciplined and purified emotion or love. That is the feeling in which you say, okay, I feel safe here. I feel completely connected. I feel loved. I feel embraced by whatever it is, God, the universe, source, etc. Which then may be both protection and the key to the gateway to intelligent infinity. You feel safe, you have protection. And then the key to the gateway of intelligent infinity is precisely that. So I don't think I need to go on this anymore. I think it's pretty explicit. So yeah, this is the way in which anybody really, this is the mechanism. And Carla had, of course, a strong association with church and worship and rituals of white magic nature. She was just completely excited about all of that. I actually envy her because, not envy her, but I admire her devotion because that's something I've never had. And if anything, it's just my way of connecting. I mean, I do have to say, and maybe some of you will resonate with this, but me as somebody who, like I said, I didn't grow up in church. I mean, I went to church when I was a kid, but I didn't evolve in church or in any spiritual practice. For me, the perfect way for connecting has always been meditation. And meditation and prayer are precisely the same thing. And I don't really like rituals and activities and physical stuff. I enjoy simply just sitting in silence. And this is why, of course, it's my predilection. Things of the kind like simply sitting in silence, to me is just the most beautiful way I can connect with myself. Myself being the oneness that we all are. And so many things. I mean, I can talk about my exploration, just beautiful. But it doesn't involve practices and stuff. And I could do it here, which I love doing it. This is like my little space where I meditate. But I could do it outside too. I could do it anywhere. It's not as strong as when I'm here in the morning, but it does connect for sure with I practice it because it's not something that I access here and then I go into the world. I miss being there. I try to carry this with me everywhere. So anyhow, we can go into the next question. Question 5, Don says, can you tell me why the slight error made in the ritual starting this communication 2 sessions ago allowed the intrusion of one Orion affiliated entity? So Don is now asking about that incident where they almost killed Carla. Ra says, this contact is narrowband and its preconditions precise. The other self offering its service in the negative path also is possessed of the skill of the swordsman. You deal in this contact with, shall we say, forces of great intensity, pour into a vessel as delicate as a snowflake and as crystalline. I'll just keep reading. The smallest of lapses may disturb the regularity of this pattern of energies which forms the channel for these transmissions. We may note, for your information, that our pause was due to the necessity of being quite sure that the mind-body-spirit complex of the instrument was safely in the proper light configuration or density before we dealt with the situation. Far better would it be to allow the shell to become unviable than to allow the mind-body-spirit complex to be, shall we say, misplaced. You see, I have to be honest here. There is a part where I am not confused, but I would love to have further questions about Ra and their perception of this attack or the end result. And it may reveal a little bit of who Ra is and where are they. I don't know. You see, it's natural for us to say, oh, Ra is higher than us. And there's going to be a little bit of this by Ra's words, so you don't think it's me, dissing Ra. So, okay. Where do we start? Don asked what happened, what was why that slight error caused, the problem. I think he asked something similar that time. But first, Ra explains and refreshes us in the type of connection or contact that they have, which is narrow-banded. And the preconditions are precise, the other self offering its service in the negative passes also. I like that they use the word swordsman here. The negative entity possess that finesse of being able to attack very precisely in those little gaps. So Ra says you deal in this contact with forces of great intensity pour into a vessel as delicate as a snowflake and as crystalline. I suppose this is because of you see, I would say that the connection here, and this is just me saying it, why is Carla, or the instrument, so delicate as a snowflake and as crystalline? Because her connection, or our connection in general, with our true essence is delicate, always. We're more invested, far more invested into this illusory reality, if that even makes sense. But this illusion of the universe. And I suppose this delicacy that exists between our present connection and the pure connection, that's what can be, can be affected, right? So that small connection that we have because of our level of consciousness here. So again, this is just me speculating and putting a little visual. I'm not totally subscribed to what I'm saying, but it's a way of picturing it. And so whenever this connection, especially in trance, when you basically say, my body is nothing, it's just a vessel there, and I go into the astral planes and whatever. Before people ask, I got this question in my Spanish channel. I don't believe actually that there is a risk for those who are doing astral travels and lucid dreams and all of that, because you're not in a trance state. The trance state is something completely different, like Carla was. Few people actually get to this, so no worries. And so they are at risk of being pulled out of their vessel, like Carla was at risk, you see. And this is what Ra is saying, that you deal in this contact with forces of great intensity. That is imagine, you see how Ra has a narrow band contact because they are so close to infinity. It's like getting close to the event horizon and trying to transmit all this information that is in the event horizon, that vast amount of information, into a weak antenna that we are here, a very minute. That's why snowflake, it's actually a very good word here, because it's very delicate. Anything can distort its shape and beautiful crystalline structure. And so that amount of information needs to be sent very specific. And that's why the Ra contact is so pure and precise. So, when dealing with this, of course, this huge information, then of course you're going to call upon negative entities of equal strength. And so Ra says that the smallest of lapses may disturb the regularity of this pattern of energies, which forms the channel for these transmissions. Of course, it's like trying to transmit at long distance. Anything that gets in the way, it's going to interfere. And so that small lapse that they had was an interference, and that in that interference, then they can actually act, the negative entities. We may note for your information that our pause was due to the necessity. Okay, so now they're just saying, we paused because we wanted to make sure that she was right in the proper light configuration and so on. Far better, they're saying it would have been better that she died, just died, and that'll be the end of it, than being misplaced. And this is the part what I would love to ask more, especially of Ra. Why do they think that was better? What makes them judge that being misplaced? Of course, we can create all kinds of ideas and let's say justifications for this. That, of course, Gabe, you don't want them to go to a negative plane, but why not? That's my question. I mean, I'm not challenging, I'm just inquiring into it. I would love to know more. Why is it that Ra believes that it's far better? I can surmise that the answer may lie in the inconvenience that it may cause to the higher self, knowing that this mind-body-spirit complex that we call Carla was pretty much advanced in the positive path, and now it needs to go in the negative path. But again, why would that be a problem? Isn't that going to be, and Ra says it even in further sessions, I think what they say, I think in 2 sessions actually, they're going to talk about this again, and they say that it would just delay things, but in the end, everything would end well. So I don't know. This is the one or sentence that I would love to know more. When they say far better would it be to allow the shell to become unviable, death, than to allow the mind-body-spirit complex to be misplaced. So, I'm not sure. But I mean, I guess we know that the misplaced part is being misplaced into negative time-space to be incarnated in space-time negative. So, I don't know. This is beyond my pay rate again. For now, maybe in the future I would know. Don says in question 6, could you describe or tell me of rituals or technique used by Ra in seeking in the direction of service? Ra says, to speak of that which 6th density social memory complexes labor within in order to advance is at best misprision of plane communication, for much is lost in transmission of concept from density to density, and the discussion of 6th density is inevitably distorted greatly. So Don wants to know what kind of rituals Ra use in 3rd density, right? That's exactly what they're asking, or he's asking. And so Ra is saying, you know what, if I tell you what our social memory complex... Oh no, I'm sorry. This is not 3rd density. So let me rewind. Forget everything I said. Question 6. Could you describe or tell me of rituals or technique used by Ra in seeking the direction of service? Oh, so this is even more powerful. Even. I think, there is a question that is from 3rd density. That's what I was thinking. I'll get to that. And you're going to see Ra's answer also. But in this, Don is asking, okay, so what are your rituals that you do in 6th density, that you do up there, or down there, or inside, or whatever? So Ra says that, if I tell you the 6th density social memory complex type of rituals, that would be, not in... that would not be proper use, is what they mean with misprision of plane communication. That would not be proper use of communication from 6th density to 3rd density, for much is lost in the transmission of concept from density to density. And this makes sense, of course. Like the perception, and this is where I'm going to get at with this question. The discussion of sixth density is inevitably distorted greatly. Let me give this as an introduction to this question, or this answer, actually. This information that Ra gives us. So, there are experiences. There are all kinds of experiences. I reflect upon the fact that this vast infinite universe, can it only be made for third density experience? Of course not. And so imagine the level of experience that resides in fourth density, and then in fifth density, then in sixth density, and ultimately in seventh density. These are all levels of experience. We can experience a fractalized portion of this whole octave within ourselves. Imagine what it is to experience the thrill of jumping out of a plane at high altitude. You know, that's an experience of, oh my god, I'm going to die, or wow, you know. Compare that to the sensation of love and companionship with other people. Compare that to the ecstasy of feeling oneness with everything. You see, we have these experiences already in the human form. Now, if we can, and rightfully so, why would an infinite creator not want to do this? Experience itself in all kinds of scenarios or situations. Like, for example, let me experience all planetary entities at once. Social memory complex, why not? Let me experience the combined efforts of a whole confederation together, why not? You know, let me experience the whole galaxy. Let me experience the whole universe, moving, emotionally active, and developing all kinds of strategies to evolve into my understanding of self. I mean, you can go on with your imagination here, but you can see that, you know, there must be an infinite amount of experiences, right? And so, at least within the model that Ra gives us with the octave, you can see that there are experiences that you're going through, you're thriving in, right? And so sixth density is one of those experiences, but you cannot compare that experience to the human form, the human experience. You can talk about it like they do, and they mention it, but why would those rituals have anything to do with what we do? You know, their seeking is much different than ours in the sense of experience. It's the same seeking. We're all seeking the one creator, and we all have the one creator. We are all the one creator, but it's different in the way we experience it. So, with that in mind, Ra continues. It's a long answer, so we'll see. Ra says, however, we shall attempt to speak to your query, for it is an helpful one in that it allows us to express once again the total unity of creation. We seek the one creator upon a level of shared experience to which you are not privy, and rather than surrounding ourselves in light, we have become light. Our understanding is that there is no other material except light. Our rituals, as you may call them, are an infinitely subtle continuation of the balancing processes which you are now beginning to experience. That is, love and light, or love and wisdom. Ra continues and says, we seek now without polarity. Thus, we do not invoke any power from without, for our search has become internalized as we become light-love and love-light. These are the balances we seek, the balances between compassion and wisdom, which more and more allow our understanding of experience to be informed that we may come closer to the unity with the one creator which we so joyfully seek. Your rituals at your level of progress contain the concepts of polarization, and this is most central at your particular space-time. we may answer further if you have specific queries. So here's a glimpse and a couple of ideas or concepts that we can play with, especially at the end when they say that your rituals at your level of progress contain the concept of polarization. So we bask in the beauty and joyful experience of polarization. This is the whole purpose of this density, is this: to enjoy the process of polarizing oneself. These are the beginning stages. These are, it's like, for those who have a little bit of video gaming in yourselves and still play old video games. You don't play the old video games because of the experience of novelty that you had in the past, but you play for nostalgia. Yet it is a very strong emotion. One cannot deny that an old video game is more or less than a new one, right? So I'm trying to use this crude analogy to show how densities can provide a different experience, and yet very powerful, because it depends on the structure of that density. And so in my analogy, the old video game, the Atari or NES, arcade, whatever, that is, Galaga, say, or any of the other famous titles in NES, these are all nostalgic games that you play sometimes for fun, because it elicits that experience in yourself, right? So third density is the same thing. It's almost like the NES game trying to ask, where are they at? PS5 already? PS6? I don't know. I stopped that already for a while, following all of that. But yeah, that game saying, what are your mechanics for entertainment? It's different. It could be explained if I can continue to anthropomorphize. My God, anthropomorphize, even in Spanish I forgot the word. Create the idea of human in the whole system of games. So what is the highest development trying to tell the old one? It's just that there is an experience, and that experience is dependent upon the structure of that density. Anthropomorphize, I think it is, right? So in the previous paragraph, Ra said something else that I think it's important for us to see. This is the experience of Ra. This is the distant point of light in our experience, and the highest level of consciousness, which I'll get to. So they say, we seek the Creator upon a level of shared experience to which you are not privy. So first of all, they're a social memory complex. They work in unison as a whole. And so they seek the Creator in a very specific way, the social memory complex. That is what we are not privy of, because we don't work as a social memory complex right now. And even if we were at the very primitive stages in third density of a social memory complex, which is very, very, very unlikely to happen on Earth before full transition. And rather than surrounding ourselves in light, which is what we do, if you think about it, especially talk about rituals, they always say, surround yourselves in light. You're still using the separate self here, saying, I am a being that needs to be surrounded by light. This is our perception of life. And our most advanced masters and teachers have always said, there is no self. We can see that here. Even in third density, we have a portal to intelligent infinity, which informs us that we are not an actual being. This is what I teach in my course of the direct path, because I found it to be the most brilliant way for people like me who did not grow in Hinduism, Christianity, or any of the Islam culture, for me to have a spiritual connection with anything. The direct path is just beautiful. So go check it out if you want. In the description, always the link. But yeah, this is what we're told, and we see over and over again. Jesus taught the same thing. You're not a separate being. You're all the Father. You're all the one self. And so, you see, they don't surround themselves in light. Speaking of rituals, they are light. They have become light. In their perception of self, they have realized that they are light. Just like we realize that we are pure consciousness. We can see that here. We can live by this here. This is what Gautama Siddhartha did. He realized, I'm not an actual being. I'm just pure consciousness. This is what Ramana Maharshi, the father, let's say the founding father, probably nobody has said that probably in the past, but he is the recent exponent of the direct path, which goes without any of the rituals of yoga and Hinduism and Buddhism or Christianity and so on. It goes straight to the heart of who we are, pure consciousness, and we reveal that together. So our understanding is that there is no other material except light. That we can also understand easily with our lessons of third density. We can understand that easily. Quantum physics have revealed that. And of course, non-duality has also revealed this, that there is no material. There is only consciousness. And consciousness takes the form of what we call light. And that light is exactly what Ra refers to as the principle of the creation. There is pure awareness, or there is the one infinite, intelligent infinity, right? And infinity becomes aware. Infinity is awareness. So it becomes aware of itself. And that produces the triad of awareness, love, and light. Free will, love, and light. These are the three that create the universe. The three, I call them creative principles, but Ra calls creative principle love. Love is the creative principle. Light is just what's born out of love. Love light. So our rituals are an infinitely subtle continuation of the balancing process, which you are now beginning to experience, and that is, again, like they say, love, light, light, love is wisdom, love, balancing. Fourth and fifth. That's what they do in sixth density. That's what we all do in sixth density. Is the purification of this balance to reach seventh density, which is the portal to intelligent infinity. These are the balances we seek. The balances between compassion and wisdom, which more and more allow our understanding of experience to be informed, that we may come closer to the unity with the one creator we so joyfully seek. It's the same seeking that we have. It's no different, only that in their perception of the universe, things are different. They see the universe from a different lens. Your rituals at your level of progress contain the concept of polarization. All right, so I covered that. And so they are closer to infinity. I don't want to say that they're closer to the light, they're closer to God, meaning that we are farther away from it. Not at all. And this is the problem. And this is where I want to cover that distant point of light, or the highest level of consciousness. While it is true that this density thrives in the experience of the separate self, that's what polarity is. That's how polarity comes into existence, from the idea of the separate self. And it's so powerful that it can bring you on the negative path, or the path of service to self, separate self, all the way up to sixth density. So you can experience the whole universe as a separate being. Even that is possible. How cool is that? So you can do this, and you can see that, okay, so there is the separate self, and there is a possibility for me to thrive in that perception. And there is the perception of unity. Okay, within unity is the path of truth, is the path of the right view, because we do see that we are not a separate being. We are all one being. So in essence, we take a shortcut in third density to sixth density or even seventh density. We open that gateway with the truth of unity, as opposed to the negative one that opens the gateway through the wrong perception of separate self. And so the distance that we create when we say the highest levels of consciousness, rise at the highest levels of consciousness, I don't think that is the highest level of consciousness. It's the closest level of consciousness, let me put it that way, which we're all, of course, capable of doing from our own limitations, which is through this mind, separate mind, or apparent separate mind. So what I'm trying to project here is that this is the highest level of consciousness as what we are experiencing right now. And please don't take high or low as something better and worse. It is simply, what is the purpose of creation but to experience itself? And so what is the highest level of experience if not the one that feels the most isolated and separate from everything? That's what we're experiencing. So this is the highest level of design that the Creator can fathom so far, and it's this human form. So this is the best video game it could play. This is the best acting that it can perform, right? So all of this is really creating the best way for the one Creator to experience itself. Third density is the deal. This is the real deal. Anything that goes closer to unity is already returning to the source, is returning to what began everything in the first place. And so the highest level of consciousness, it could actually be the opposite. This is how I want to revert it, that this is the highest level of consciousness. Of course, yeah, in our mind, you see, the separate self is always looking to progress. I need to evolve. I need to become something. And this is what starts the journey through the densities. This is what starts the journey within a lifetime or a whole cycle or many cycles, because I need to become something. I need to become something. And it's the pause and realization that you say, wait, I don't have to become anything. I am already. That is the glorious realization, you see? And so, but that's fine. In our mind, we think that the highest level of consciousness is something that we need to achieve. Not true. The highest level of consciousness is simply consciousness. And you are conscious. That is the basis of everything. You are conscious. Explore reality as a conscious being. Not as a conscious of, yeah, I'm conscious with the environment, or I'm conscious of the law of one and densities and so on. Simply as a conscious being. Not a thinkful or a thinking being, but a conscious being. And so the mind will always interfere, and I think that's the beauty of this density, that the mind is there to play tricks on you. The mind is there to tell you you're going to die. You're going to cease existing. Even though even our intellect sees this as a paradox. We cannot cease existing. You see, we found in physics a long time ago that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. However, yes, this beingness can be destroyed. And apparently even the universe will cease to exist. How? How does that even connect with our basic common sense that for something to not exist, something must exist? You can't have an up without a down. But yeah, we get that. That's the beautiful trick of the human mind. And so you get deluded into this scientific approach of what's it called? Heat death. No more movement. Everything will stand still. What is everything? Energy? Really? Energy is gonna stand still? Sure, you'll wait. You'll be waiting eternity. the games we play. It's so beautiful. I love it. So again, if anything, the distant point of light is you, and is perceived only by the mind, but it's inviting, and it's welcoming, and it's consciousness. Okay, so we finish this video with a couple more questions, which are question 7. Don says, would it be helpful if Ra were to describe the techniques used while Ra was in third density to evolve in mind, body, and spirit? This is the question that got me confused and all tangled. Ra says, this query lies beyond the law of confusion. Basically saying, no, we cannot tell you. Ra says, or Don says, what about fourth density experience of Ra? Would that also lie beyond the law of confusion? Ra says, this is correct. Let us express a thought. Ra is not elite. To speak of our specific experiences to a group which honors us is to guide to the point of a specific advising. Our work was that of your peoples, of experiencing the catalyst of joys and sorrows. Our circumstances were somewhat more harmonious. Let it be said that any entity or group may create the most splendid harmony in any outer atmosphere. Ra's experiences are no more than your own. Yours is the dance at this space-time in third density harvest. So beautiful. Let me see what else we have. Yeah, I'll cover the last one just because it's part of this bunch. And so, yeah, can you tell us your rituals in third density, Ra? No, we cannot, because that would be infringing upon free will, or making you feel that, you know, this is the correct way because you were successful in third density. Then, you know, and I think they learned that with the pyramids already. So you can see their lessons learned here by saying, nope, we're not saying anything. Anything that we did in the past does not help you. You're supposed to figure this out yourself. It's like when you're trying to help somebody do a movement, for example. I think about my fitness expertise, and when I try to help people do a movement, and you know, they want intellectual knowledge into how to do the movement. But how can I tell you how to move your hand? You have to do it yourself. You know, I can tell you, you know, place the hand in front of you, look at it, send information from your brain to it. None of that actually really helps. If anything, it can confuse you, just like the pyramids. And so, the same way, Ra said, no, siree, we cannot share that. Not with you. Not at this time. And not again. So the next question, Don says, what about fourth density? Can you give us a little bit of that? I think Don was just like playing with Ra here. I know he wasn't, but it just sounds like, how about fourth density? Huh? How about that? And Ra says, nope. They say this is correct because Don said that if it lied beyond the law of confusion. And Ra says yes, and then they say, let us say something. Ra is not an elite. So we're not trying to give you information, you know, we're not Orion, okay? You can ask this specific information to Orion. And this is why I see so much of that, the Orion influence in a lot of messages and our ways of thinking too, when we say, we have the way, this is the ideal way, you know, this is how we're supposed to do it. This is why, if you listen to my podcast about social inadequate, you heard that I said that I'm not idealistic at all. Or maybe I said that in Spanish, I don't remember. But in any case, you're listening to it now here. I'm not idealistic. I just don't believe that there are ideal ways of doing anything in life. People would say, Gabe, what do you mean? You know, we have to protect the environment, and we have to protect people, and we have to do this, and children must be safe, and blah, blah, blah. Yes, I mean, I see the well-intention in all of that. Just like I saw the well-intention of the Crusaders bringing their religion and their dominance and everything else. But, you know, they had good intentions. You know, those with good intentions have done the worst wrongs in the world. So there are no ideals. And you can see this even in Confucius. and their alleged dialogue between Lao Tse and Confucius, where, this is all put into question. What is idealism? What is it? Who is really trying to become better? So I don't have ideals. I don't believe in them. And so Ra is trying to do the same thing here and saying, like, listen, man, we did our work in third density. You do yours. Our work was that of your peoples, of experiencing the catalyst of joys and sorrows. Simple, Enjoy your catalyst. Embrace your polarity. How about that? Our circumstances were somewhat more harmonious. They are honest and say that, sure, I think the whole universe has been more harmonious than this madhouse. Beautiful madhouse, don't get me wrong. I use words that can be taken the wrong way. But yeah, it's a beautiful madhouse. That's why we have so much variety. Let it be said that any entity or group may create the most splendid harmony in any outer atmosphere. This is so true and so special right now for Earth. Ra's experiences are no more than your own. Yours is the dance of this space-time in third density harvest. Perfect. So much I could say here. But in essence, it's just, we can actually, I think that the best meaning I can take out of this is that we can certainly create that environment within ourselves, not with other people, within ourselves. And then you see that any entity or group may create, you see, within ourselves or a group around people, we can definitely create this harmony. So yeah, that is the purpose. That is life. So, last question I'll cover, and you'll see why. Don says, the question was brought up recently, having to do with possible records left near, in or under the Great Pyramid at Giza. I have no idea whether this would be of benefit. I will just ask if there is any benefit in investigating in this area. Ra says, we apologize for seeming to be so shy of information. However, any words upon this particular subject create the possibility of infringement upon free will. So, law of confusion everywhere here in the last couple of questions that I had. I've heard about this, that there is, a flying saucer under the pyramid, that there is, a lightsaber under the pyramid, that there is the records of all history, the Akashic records are found in this portal under the right paw of the Sphinx. Actually, it's not under or near. You see, I think Don was talking about this. So I've heard all of this. How true this is, who knows? I lost all interest in this kind of subjects a while ago, but I am aware of this speculation. And Ross says, sorry, we cannot talk about that. Now, whether they are validating the existence of something important, what did Don say? Records, possible records left there. Those records down there. So whether Ra is validating that some records are there or not, from this answer, it's open to interpretation. Whether the records are important, say they exist. Let's just follow the path of them existing. If they exist, then are they important? Could it be extrapolated from Ra's unwillingness to talk about this because too heavy a subject? Well, maybe Ra was just saying, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I like to do that. It helps me to see both sides. So yeah, Ra could be saying, yes, there's something very intense down there that nobody should know about, so we cannot talk about it. Or they could be saying, your peoples believe that there is something down there. If we deny the existence somehow, or approve their existence, is this going to create a different investigation, more interest in this stuff? People are going to deviate, certainly, from the path of seeking the one creator, because this is just trinkets in our path of recognizing the true essence of our beingness. So, it could be both things. Could be that, they are important, they're not important, it could be anything. So I will follow Ra's advice that this is, actually they didn't say it, but to me this is just irrelevant information, to me at least. I don't think this is helpful, because I have found in myself that I have all the answers that I can possibly ask for, so why would I care, to look into physical stuff and hieroglyphics and whatever it is. In any case, with this, I come to the end of this first part, and in the next part, I'm going to cover biorhythms. That's why I didn't want to go further into question 10, biorhythms and other questions. Conclusions. My take on all these questions is that there is so much beauty into realizing. Well, first of all, let's go back to the separate self, who is the one that is trying to progress, is the one that is trying to achieve something, okay? I will give, obviously, credence to the existence of all the densities of consciousness, which I already said. It would be such a poor universe if we only had the human experience to realize unity, and then the rest of the universe is devoid of consciousness. The whole universe is conscious. This is the realization when you see that there is no separate self. As long as you can separate, well, when you can divest yourself from the separate self and you realize that you are pure consciousness, that gives you the whole, it blows up your mind into, my God, I am everywhere. I am actually everywhere. And everywhere is here and now. When this happens, then you see that the whole universe is consciousness. It's not only consciousness, but it is conscious. And so all of these experiences are available. There are infinite amount of experiences within consciousness. And we perceive this from the finite mind as a globe of universe, something that has, the observable universe. The universe is infinite, and it's all teeming with life of all kinds of densities. So I'm going to give obviously credibility to that and part of the model, but at the same time, the separate self who is studying this model can become minute in its sensation of the universe. Because before, it would probably feel, especially in our era of scientific development, it could feel like, well, the universe, we don't know how big it is, so I'm just here. But now it becomes one little tiny thing in an infinite universe. And it can become like, oh, those are the highest levels of consciousness. I need to reach there. That's the ego. When you realize who you are, or what you are, then these questions make no sense. They really don't. How do I progress? How do I do this? How do I do that? You are all of that. You are precisely all of this. And this is where, to me, it goes into the reverse of saying that this experience is the highest level of consciousness that we can actually achieve. The highest level of distension, right, of consciousness. The stretching of consciousness. It cannot get any more separate from itself than this. So this is the highest level of consciousness. The innermost level of consciousness is simply what we already are, but we live as pretending that we're not. We live as extending ourselves from the pure consciousness that we can simply reside in at all times into the mind to have an experience of sharing and polarizing and everything else. So all of this really comes down to realizing that you are that pure consciousness already. You don't have to progress anywhere. You cannot take a step to where you are. You cannot get closer to where you are right now. You see? So that's the whole point of this. I think this is why I see that, of course, there are points in this universe that are experiencing magnified levels of consciousness at a greater or lesser degrees, but consciousness is always the same. And I think that's my point here, that no matter what kind of magnification of consciousness, it's always the same. It's the same emotion of that arcade or NES video game that you played as a child and that you revisit and you say, wow, it's the same experience as of a new one that came out, 2022 or whatever, with the newest technology. They are the same. They elicit the same response of emotions in you. The experience is, of course, different. I'm not denying that. But the emotion, the pleasure, is the same. It's coming from the same root. And that is consciousness. We can achieve it here. We can achieve it in 6th density. We can achieve it in 7th density. It doesn't matter. We're actually doing it all the time. And we're experiencing from that point everything else, which is pure consciousness into the illusion of creation. So I come to the end of this video now. Truthfully, at the end, okay, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I appreciate you for listening this far. It was a long video. We have another half a session for the next video. Hopefully I can get the whole rest of session 64. I love you, my other self. I love sharing this with you. I know that you love listening to me, otherwise you wouldn't be here after all this hour. And I have nothing else to say, but take care of yourself. And I'll see you in part 2 of session 64.